Hi, welcome back. So you may have noticed that we kind of had a bit of a stutter at the end of the last one. My phone died. It decided to record one of the last books in that box as a partial recording and then a 19-second recording. Sorry about that. Rather than redoing that book all over again, suffice it to say, cool book on incense. Now, for the next box, this one is from Penguin Random House. Ooh. And again, we know there's something awesome in here because bubble wrap, indestructible bubble wrap. Oh, I hate this stuff. Ha! Whoa! I have discovered the secret of unpoppable bubble wrap, and I can teach it to you. Or you could just watch this video and you just already figured it out. Squeeze lots of them at once. Big hands. Those, you know what big hands mean? Big gloves. Cool. So here we have a book on remote viewing. Now, I tried to have information on a lot of different kind of psychic development and psychic arts. This is one of them. There we go. Now, if I recall, this one's written by, it was written by a gentleman who was involved in the military experimentation in remote viewing. It's Joseph McMonigal. He learned remote viewing in the U.S. Army. He was remote viewer number 001 in the Army Stargate program, which investigated whether people could see events or information from a great distance, and was awarded the Legion of Merit for his contribution to various intelligence operations. Excellent. So it'll be a bit of an insider's perspective. I look forward to hearing about it, at least from whoever reads it, or I might browse through it. Cool. Speaking of psychic arts and the development thereof, this is also useful in magical practice as well. That is to say, creative visualization. Now, this book set actually is much nicer than I had originally assumed. Not only is it a hardcover book, but it comes in a protective sheath as well. That's really nice. It's written by Shakti Gawain. Sadly, I don't know anything about Shakti Gawain, but once again, it's one of those books that came very highly recommended. Now here's one a bit closer to my heart. The Epics of Celtic Ireland. I don't know particularly if this is absolutely going to be the Mabinogion. Cool. Well, it's mythology and Celtic studies. I guess what I'd like to do is I'd like to give you a snippet off the back. Distrustful of the written word, Celtic Druids forbade that anything involving the tradition be put into writing. However, Christian monks chose to preserve all that they could of the oral tradition on paper. Unfortunately, they did not hesitate to alter what they could not comprehend, or what their Christian sensibilities found shocking. Ooh, if you want an example of that, Google Sheila na Gig. Sheila na Gig. Check that out. Sheila na Gig was destroyed all over Ireland. And when you see a picture, you'll understand why the monks back then freaked the heck out. If you want to know more about Sheila na Gig and what the symbol means, quite often you'll be able to find that online. If not, come on in and I'll talk to you a bit more about Sheila na Gig and why it's not really intended to be as vulgar as it looks. But anyway, in this collection of some of the most important narratives in the rich Irish tradition, Jean Markel restores these texts to the original form and reveals how the Celtic spirit is on the verge of reclaiming its right. Very cool. I look forward to, at the very least, reviewing it. Being somewhat familiar with Irish mythology, somewhat. The first tradition I was taught was Irish, centered around the Tuatha De Danann. How to read signs and omens in everyday life. This is divination from beginning to end, right there. I'll move that over there for right now. Now, once again, I love the For Beginners series because, and remember, please, that the Bibles, like the Healing Bible, stuff like that, they're going to introduce you to a lot of subjects, very easy to digest, but they're not going to go deeply in depth. They will give you, at the very least, a working understanding. The For Beginners series, however, will go in depth because they tend to break things up into very, very small focus areas. This one is all about sound healing. How does sound heal? Actually, if you'd like to know more about how sound heals, watch how sound affects water. Go ahead right now, go to YouTube, take a break, I'll be here, I'll be waiting. You can go to YouTube and you can just type in low frequency sound and water. It's cool, really neat stuff. It looks like it's violating the laws of physics, but it is the laws of physics that carry you all the way through it. It is so cool. Now, another one for beginner books, Shamanism for Beginners. Awesome. Now, what tradition precisely? I don't know. It makes me wonder, actually, if we're looking at a bunch of different traditions. Knowing these books, quite possibly. Now, remember I talked to you a bit about Ted Andrews, right? He has a great way of teaching. Simplified Kabbalah Magic. If Alan Cannon Reed's approach didn't help out with the Witch's Guide to the Kabbalah, then check this one out. This is meant to make the Kabbalah accessible to everyone. It won't rely on the same kind of Wiccan framework, but it'll hopefully explain it in much easier to understand terms. Now, we do have a healing section in our books, and I'm going to do a couple of books on that. Here we have one, Boosting Immunity, Creating Wellness Naturally. A lot of our daily life in the modern day really destroys our immune system, be it the chips we're eating, the pops we're drinking, the late nights we're staying up, the video games we're playing all night, because I'm so guilty of that. So we do a lot of damage to our immune systems, and we wind up essentially being our own immunosuppressants. We might as well put our efforts as well into helping boost our immune system. That way we can feel less guilty about staying up all night playing video games because we ate the right things to help support and help the immune system repair the damage that we just did. Oh boy, we're a neat species, aren't we? Here. Medicine Maker, Mystic Encounters on the Shaman's Path. Now, this is less about healing, and I really had to do a lot of research on this book because at first I thought Medicine Maker was going to be all about Native American medicines. But it's not. It's not. It's all about spiritual journey. It actually looks more at travels through the spirit realm, through the other worlds. So check that out if you're looking for more on other dimensional travel. Oh, it sounds so scientific when you put it that way, and kind of kooky. Yeah. No. Medicine Maker, Travel the Shamanic Realms. Chakra meditation. Now, weirdly enough, I was really turned off by the cover of this book when I saw it, because I'm like, oh, look at the flower, how cute. And I thought it was going to be a real piece of fluff. However, then I read a bunch of the reviews about it. More specifically, actually, and what's really hailed well is the chakra meditation CD that comes with it. Do not judge a book by its cover, apparently, because everything I've read on this has been incredibly positive. I hope whoever gets it has a very positive experience with it. And I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but one of the things that kind of made me go, oh, okay, this is actually surprisingly good, is the fact that it addresses Nadi Shodhana, I think it's called, the different nostril breathing. Think of it at the very least as if you can breathe in through one nostril and out through the other, wow, holy body control. Mantra meditation, change your karma with the power of sacred sound. Mantras are so much more than just Om. I have one that's I want to eat pizza. But on a more spiritual note than what I like to eat, this is to help you kind of guide you into mantras. If I recall, I think this one also has a CD. It does so! All these books with CDs. But I mean, if you're going to try to communicate sound, it's one thing for me to say, you say Om in a vibrating tone. It's another thing for me to go Om. Although that felt a little bit low. Anyway, on to other subjects. Shamanic journeying, actually kind of segueing or touching nicely on that other one. This one's a beginner's guide to shamanic journeying. So if you're just getting in or been introduced to the concept, this is more the book for you than Medicine Maker. Medicine Maker is from what I've seen and from what I've read, it tends to assume that you've read its earlier book, Shamanic Journeying, or that you have experience with shamanic journeying techniques and perhaps even soul repair techniques, sometimes called soul retrieval. Now that's a long subject to get into, and for such a small book, I'm not spending a bunch of time on it. I've got a big box, I got another box yet, and it's going to be a long night. Another one, Shamanism as a Spiritual Practice for Daily Life. Now, let's kind of rock it over to the east for a bit, shall we? Mahamantra Yoga, chanting to anchor the mind and access the divine. Again, a book that comes with a CD. It's hard to communicate chants and stuff without actually being able to hear them. The Siddhartha, a new translation thereof. Now, if you're in the store, you're going to notice I have another copy of the Siddhartha. Why do you have multiple translations? Because we have a lot of different versions of the Bible and slightly variant versions of the Quran, stuff like that, because people translate words differently. And in some cases, the meanings of certain words are debated when they're translated over. Not all languages translate directly. Sometimes you're kind of fumbling, trying to figure out how to put it in the best wording. I wanted to have multiple copies, so those who follow it as follow Buddhism as a spiritual practice, they could get multiple sources. This is done by Shambhala Publications, so it is by Buddhists, meant for Buddhists. Now, while we're kind of off in Tibet, there are a bunch of different kinds of astrology, and I love collecting different kinds of astrology myself. Sometimes they're really cool. Like I have this book on lunar astrology. It breaks the sign into 13 signs related to the Celtic trees. But that's a topic for another time. This book is all about Tibetan astrology, and I have to admit, I'm really kind of curious and excited. It's going to have a bunch of Buddhist leanings in the teachings. Essentially, from what I understand, what was the name of that? I'm going to pronounce it wrong because I remember I wanted to call it the Bon region of Tibet. I think it does sound out as bone, and I think the reason I keep on avoiding bone, calling it bone, is because it sounds like bone, inside of you. But yeah, I look forward to seeing more about that. Now, for those of you who are curious about Buddhism, it's like, okay, so there's Buddha. Well, actually, there's a lot more than just that. There's a whole philosophy, and it's more than the Dalai Lama and his incredibly peaceful pronouncements and way of viewing life. The essence of Buddhism. It's an introduction to the philosophy and practice of Buddhism. So if you're like, what the heck is Buddhism, and you want to know more, this is a great place to start. Now, I have a smaller version of this in the store, but for those of you who like book sets and are like me, you will probably like the Bhagavad Gita. This isn't any Bhagavad Gita. This is a beautiful hardcover set. It is gorgeous. I knew that this was expensive when I ordered it, and the pictures they had really did not do it justice. This is a very, very pretty set. Wow, that is nice. This, by the way, is put out by the Self-Realization Fellowship. For those of you who don't know, that was established by, I want to call him Yogi Uganda, but that's not right, and I can't remember his first name, but it was back in the 20s, if I recall. I think it was late 20s. I could be wrong. But suffice it to say, the Self-Realization Fellowship has been working on spreading the philosophy of the beliefs and sharing, the Bhagavad Gita. So this is a very, very lovely set. I'm going to put this down here so it doesn't topple because it's heavy. Oh, what next? Now, if that looks like a bit much to read and you're kind of one of those Om Mani Padme Hum types, and I don't mean the calm Om Mani Padme Hum, I mean interpreting Om Mani Padme Hum like I do with the serenity now, give it to me now, then this may help. The essential wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, put in a much easier to digest form. Think of it like the Cliff Notes version, yeah? Well, I have no good segues into the rest of the books in here, so let's just take a giant jump. We're kind of going to go back to our green section, our blue section, which is healing. Mastering the addicted brain, building a sane and meaningful life to stay clean. Addiction is something which afflicts every community. It does not care what religion you are. It does not care what color, what wealth, nothing. It doesn't give a damn. Addiction is a challenge to anybody, so long as you're a human being. Hopefully, someone out there sees this book that needs it and hopefully it's a rope when they're trying to climb. That's the hope.
Are you ready for something completely different and maybe a little bit sensual? I know you can't see me dirty dancing because I'm behind this, but trust me, it was dirty. We have Sex Magic for Beginners.
Or, as those who studied under Donald Michael Craig in 12 Lessons in Modern Magic,
Chapter 10.
Anyway, sex magic isn't all about just getting laid and in a giant magical circle and making your robes dirty. What it's about is there's a lot of creative power tied up in the procreative act, an immense amount of power. Really stop and think for a moment. Through a union of flesh, you're able to create life and sentience. That's an awful lot of power. Now, this isn't essentially abort the baby and make it magic. No. But that energy raised through lovemaking can be put to many, many different purposes, above and beyond just having the woohoo. So, if you're interested in sex magic, check it out. Once again, it's one of the For Beginners series, so it's going to have a bunch of information on it. If the very title made you blush, this is not a book for you, because it's not going to get any cleaner as we go inside. I'm not going to flip it and show you, because quite often they'll have diagrams that'll show things like how to use the perineum to stop an orgasm, stuff like that. Ooh, Ryan, have you studied sex magic? Maybe. Enough of that. On to a completely different part of our health. Rather in the healing section, there's advanced Bach flower therapy. Now, there's a few books I have on basic Bach flower remedies, kind of introducing people to it. I am not familiar enough with the flower remedies to be able to speak on this with any great authority, but I can say that all the reviews about it actually were very excited. A bunch of people who had already kind of mastered Bach flower remedies and we're looking for something more advanced. And anybody who's ever become good in a field, you understand that feeling where you're like, oh, geez Louise, could you please give me something new? Stop, because you'll buy a new book and it'll be the same stuff over and over and over again. You get so tired of it. All the reviews were saying that this was absolutely a breath of fresh air. So, if you are interested or practicing the Bach flower remedies and want to expand, want to learn more, check this out. Again, in the same section, we have healing mantras. Sound for healing. Now, this book does not come with a CD, pardon me. But it's all about using sound affirmations. Oh goodness, I'm sorry. I hope you didn't hear those burps. If you did, if you didn't, what burps? Back to the Bach flower remedies. They can also be used in massage. This is looking at kind of taking the two disciplines and putting them together. Fascinating stuff. Now, again, remember when we had all the uses for Reiki, the one dealing with common ailments. But what do you do in emergency? Because when I was flipping through the one for ailments, or rather when I was reading the reviews, there wasn't much for first aid. What the heck do you do for first aid with Reiki? This book should give you a few ideas. It's written by Reiki master Walter Lubeck and gives extensive instructions on topics ranging from Reiki whole in the body treatment to special positions in Reiki. I'm probably saying that wrong. But the idea is to give you practical advice that you can apply day to day, not just necessarily in a treatment session. Time for another topic jump. Brace yourself, Effie. Secret potions, elixirs, and concoctions. This is really just, well, as a friend says, botanical and aromatic recipes for bod, mind, and soul, bro. For the body, the mind, and the soul. I look forward to seeing more about it. It seems, from what I've seen in the reviews, it seems to work more on kind of mood elevation, almost self-medication through scent and kind of emotional space alteration. Excellent, we're back to healing. The Tibetan Healing Handbook, a practical manual for diagnosing, treating, and healing with natural Tibetan medicine. I wanted to have a bunch of different varieties of healing techniques. Some aren't for everybody. Reiki isn't for everybody. Pranic healing isn't for everybody. Qigong isn't for everybody. Chinese herbal medicine isn't for everybody. So I wanted to make sure that if you're exploring the realms of healing and trying to find kind of a niche that you love or that works for you, or if you're looking to find healing methods from your tradition, from your family's ancestry, I'm hoping that this helps. Now, speaking of things you don't necessarily expect to be put together, Taoist shaman. Now, you may have recalled from many different videos and from some of the stuff I've written on our Facebook page, there are a lot of different kinds of shamanism. Just because somebody's a shaman does not mean that they're from North America. This is a fusion of Taoism and shamanism. I'm very curious to find out more. From what I understand, by the way, Taoist shamanism is going to involve a lot of the precepts of Qigong. So, or at least one would expect it to. So if Qigong's been interesting to you, or if you do a shamanic practice and are learning Qigong, this book may help you kind of unite the two. And more healing. Bach flower remedies for children. Now, please always remember that although there are many ways to supplement and help your body fight some illnesses and diseases, there are some that are beyond the power of holistic medicine to cure. The same way that there are some beyond the power of conventional medicine to cure. Putting them together, utilizing whole information and all the resources you have, we can find better paths to health. This is so we don't forget our children. Now, it looks like we're going to kind of dabble off into some shamanism. Chosen by the spirits, following your shamanic calling. Now, if I recall, this one is not a standard shamanism either. It's Mongolian shamanic tradition. I did a lot of digging to find as many different kind of styles of shamanism as I possibly could. One of the reasons, too, is because in the same way I love doing comparative religion, I love looking at different shamanic traditions as well. You'll find a lot of little differences and a lot of different mythologies, but you're going to find a lot of commonalities. And that, I believe, is kind of the true face of shamanism, the universal truths. Now here's another one. This one is definitely written from the Native American perspective, written by a man named Kenneth Meadows. It includes a CD with shamanic drumming, Native American shamanic drumming. It's called The Shamanic Experience, Practical Guide to Psychic Powers. Actually, it also it kind of bears mentioning that Kenneth Meadows himself is internationally respected for his work in adapting shamanic wisdom to contemporary culture. He's done a good few books: Earth Medicine, Medicine Way, Rune Power, and Where Eagles Fly. Cool. Speaking of his other book, Shamanic Spirit. This one also includes another 60-minute shamanic drumming CD. It's going to be different music than in that one. But this way, if you enjoy his writing, you've got more of it. Now, kind of on a similar bent, but not entirely shamanism, is Animal Wise, Ted Andrews, yet again. Although if you always wondered what he's looked like, there, that's what he looks like. And quite often you'll see pictures like this of him where he has his hat on and you can't see his face, and you're like, oh look, it's a dude. It's nice to actually be able to see his face, get a feel for who and what he is. It's all about understanding the language of animal companions and messengers. So check that out. If you liked his other work like Animal Speak, check out Animal Wise. Oh, next. Ooh. This is the next book that I'm going to hold up. This is a book that I have had since I was 17. And I was so happy to find it. It's written by Ellen Everett Hopman. It's A Druid's Herbal for the Sacred Year. And it is fantastic. I love it. I made a song out of part of it because it goes into what they were called, like what were the different kind of dark and light half the year, the months of the Kligny calendar it was called. I used to have a song that would help me remember them. Kligny calendar, by the way, is Gaulish Druids. Some people will be like, well, I'm a British Druid, I've never heard of the Kligny calendar. Well, because it's Gaulish. But it's fantastic. Once again, though, it looks at all the herbs through very much a druidic lens. Oh my gosh. It's not as in-depth on medicinal herbology. It's mostly magical. Now, speaking of medicine and healing, I have a book on chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and Lyme disease. And this is the alternative medicine guide, too. Especially Lyme disease, I know that there's a lot of debate well, whether it exists or not. At the very least, people who have chronic Lyme disease have constant reinfections of it, and they're showing the same symptoms over and over and over. I tend to I tend to put concerns of Munchausen's disorder to the side if it's showing up all over the world, and it's something which has been spreading. The cases of Lyme disease, chronic Lyme disease, have been going up and up and up and up. It's definitely following the patterns of a disease, rather more importantly. I can't remember if it's virus or bacteria, but I tend to believe the people who have the symptoms, and especially because those symptoms keep on recurring. Chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia too are generally very, very difficult to diagnose, and sometimes sufferers are stuck in a hell of a lot of pain while doctors or medical professionals who are unable to diagnose it or are erroneously diagnosing it say, well, we're doing our best. And please understand, they are usually doing their best. It is not, these things are not easy to diagnose. But being in the experience, if you think you have them, browse through this book. It'll have all sorts of kind of quantifiers to help you understand, is this something I have? And then there's some natural treatment remedies, some methods of trying to help your body find equilibrium, fight against the interloper, or just stop hurting so much, because I know fibromyalgia can just be a nightmare. So this is for sufferers of all of the above. I really hope it helps. I really do. Now, here's something on healing, but less healing the body and more healing the self. Beginning mindfulness, learning the way of awareness. In Christianity, it said, as you have done unto the least of these your brethren, you have done unto me. You'll find the same general concept in a lot of different religions. Being mindful is sometimes considered to be more of a Buddhist ideal, although I think that you'll find a lot of it in different religions. The depth to which its practitioners follow it depends upon their individual choice. But as one of those commonalities between world faiths, I think it's worth a read. Get another religion's viewpoint on mindfulness. Now, going back to Ted Andrews. Ted Andrews has this series of books called The Young Person's School of Magic and Mystery. And I had always been iffy about buying his books, or buying that series, because they were surprisingly expensive. But now I know why. They're hardcovers. Hardcovers are always more expensive. This one is Spirits, Ghosts, and Guardians. Written for young aspiring witches, wizards, druids, what have you. This is a good information resource for them. Yeah. Actually, I can go over quickly what it's meant to deal with. How to go on a ghost hunt. How to see spirits through the use of acupressure. How to recognize the presence of spirits and ghosts. How to call upon angels throughout the year. How to know your spirit guides and guardians. How to make magical angel talismans. How to find your spirit animal guardian and totem. How to awaken the magic of the fairy realm. How to honor the spirit of pets who have died. And how to invite dragons to protect you. Now, this is not a book, but it is beautiful. This is the Celtic Tarot. The Celtic Tarot is quite pretty. The cards tend to be very, one of the most common reviews actually was that the cards are very, very clean, very, very precise, and very, very forward. I have to admit, part of me was hoping that the backs would be the cards themselves would be thoroughly embellished with knotwork. On the backs they are, but on the front visual side they're not. I don't know if you'll be able to make it out. They're a lot more crisp. And they're really kind of traditional in some of their imagery. Some other elements, though, definitely show a Celtic touch. I look forward to seeing these cards closer. Now we're taking a total jump. We've been looking at a lot of healing and shamanism and spiritualism and parapsychology. Now we're going to jump right back into kind of the ceremonial arena. Most specifically, we're going to be looking at techniques of Greco-Egyptian magic. Now this is written by Stephen Skinner, who's relatively well known for contributing to and retranslating and making sure to publish a lot of classical ceremonial magical works. If you go to our classical magical section, you're going to find an awful lot of stuff from him in the high magic area. This is yet more from him. Speaking of Stephen Skinner, and yet more from him, techniques of Solomonic magic. Now, if I do recall, I think this is part of, Skinner put out this 8-piece, or this 8-tome, pretty much the Grand Guide to Ceremonial Magic. If I do recall, this is one of them. No, it's not. I'm a liar. Although, hilariously enough, we have most of them here in store. That's really cool. This is one of the supplementary ones that he wrote. When did he write it? It's not gonna tell me. Okay. Suffice it to say, thick book, hardcover. Now, some people who know me will know that although I love Silver Ravenwolf, especially for her grimoire for the Solitary Witch, which really is her opus. If somehow she's watching this, wow, well done. Well done. But others will also know that the thing that I disliked that she put out was pretty much the Teen Witch in a box. There was this Teen Witch box set that came out, and it came out, I can't remember if the craft came out first or if it came out. Suffice it to say, I saw a bajillion little teenage girls running around with raven black hair and digging engraved dirt fingernails, asking me if I had read the book and if I worshipped Manon. By the way, just a little bit of errata. Manon was a god of communication and travel. He was not a god of the sea. He was not a god of everything like was projected in the craft. Please understand, the craft is a work of fiction. They had a consultant who was pagan, but they slightly put everything off from what it actually is. So yes, there was a god named Manon. No, he's not going to make you float around the house and make you scare people and think that there's snakes all over them. So that's... Stop it. Turn off the TV. Sorry. Anyway, enough of that introduction. After all of that, from everything that I have read, actually, Teen Witch, Wicca for a New Generation. I remember when the first copy of this came out, and because it came out after her Witch in a Box set, I wouldn't even give it a chance, and really that was unfair. I was judging a book by its cover in a way. From what I've heard, especially the reviews written by teenagers, those are the ones I took as the most important. Check the target audience, see what they think. This is apparently really, really good. So I'm actually very happy to have it in the store. Because I know that I was definitely hunting for the craft when I was, from age 12 to 16 was when I was really researching Magick, when I first started rather. And boy, would it have ever been nice to have had stuff that was meant for me to comprehend the subject matter, instead of trying to read stuff aimed at adults and highly educated adults, and trying to slog my way through it.